A Light Within Darkness Chapter 66, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Ah. There was nothing better for a human man than seeing your prim and proper lewd space elf woman get bamboozled by their literal goddess. So. I spoke out while Isha, Ellesmere, and myself sat at a short table, obviously about to discuss what was to happen in the future. How do we approach you being here, Isha? Obviously, I have no intent in hiding you or keeping you sequestered away. But if widespread knowledge of your existence is revealed with your weakened state, that will draw the worst of the galaxy. I spoke with some stress in my voice as I couldn't imagine what the Eldar would do, to say nothing of their Drukhhari cousins. Like would their dark cousins try to use Isha as some kind of torture pig to fuel the suffering of their whole subrace? I thought before shuddering at the insane cruelty the dark Eldar got up to and how they would assuredly do something terrible to Isha as a matter of course. And of course, the humans with their inquisition. I could already see the scene of the ship's interior as they came out of the warp and into real space near the planet. A scarred and grizzled inquisitor staring down at the planet we lived upon and then looks further down at the glowing red button labeled Exterminatus. He would smash that fucking button as if it owed him money, and then my planet will go boom. Isha hummed and thought before smiling softly as she spoke up. We do in fact have solutions, husband. She started, and the way she naturally said husband with only a gentle smile made Ellesmere twitch before she continued. Weakened as I may be, I am still a goddess, and protecting a single planet with my full power and attention rather than looking after and whispering the cures to all of Nurgle's diseases to man and Eldari, wouldn't be difficult. She actually then reached over and took my hand, making me blink. You don't need to fret, Jake, so long as this world itself isn't pulled into chaos, no great threat will obliterate this planet. Unless the Tyranids come in mass. She said wryly and. Fair enough, honestly, divine power even for the chaos gods falls short of the insane power within a Tyrannid hive fleet. I couldn't help but rub my face as I took a breath, as really things were going to calm down for the next while. I had shot to the fucking peak of the spirit realm in cultivation, and I hadn't had much of any time to familiarize myself with my power and allow my soul to sublimate for the next major milestone in cultivation, being the earth realm, so I just needed to chill out. Alright, we will be keeping our heads down, if things come and happen, whatever. But we now have the best goddess to smack them away. I said jokingly, making Isha giggle at how I was putting the responsibility on her. In the meantime, we should continue to muster our strength and help the disciples grow in strength so that they may begin exploring the planet to gather more materials. I finished, and Ellesmere nodded while Isha tilted her head to the side in confusion. So then I launched into an explanation to Isha about cultivation, her nodding along, and she smiled as she picked up something even I didn't think of. So could I take over the caring of the spirit herb gardens? She asked, honestly looking like it was the greatest thought ever, and I nodded happily, as having a literal fertility goddess taking care of my finicky magical plants and herbs would be for the best. But before we could continue talking, Ellesmere's hand slapped onto the table, and I saw she was actually looking at Isha with something approaching anger. Why haven't you said anything about at least giving hope to the Eldari rather than just sitting here being a housewife and taking care of a damned garden? She demanded, and I rose an eyebrow as this outburst was out of left field to say the least. But Isha's response was likewise cold, to say the least, as she lost her smile and looked at Ellesmere with not a single bit of emotion as she clearly spoke. Hold your tongue, child. I am millions of years old. I was there to help your kind survive the Necronter and then the rampaging Quarks for literal millions of years after the war in heaven. I watched your kind delve into the darkness and become even worse than the most depraved of demons, and then, even when your gods pleaded and begged for you to return to the light of sanity, you scorned us. And in your ignorance, pride, and depravity, you performed the ultimate evil in giving birth to Slaanesh. Isha leaned towards Ellesmere, and I tensed as I prepared to pull them aside should things get physical, as Ellesmere would tear apart the almost powerless goddess unless she could pull some kind of magical curse on her or something. But no, Isha was seemingly content in cutting down Ellesmere verbally and honestly. The words were all too true in my point of view. My entire fellow immortal pantheon of dozens, even hundreds of gods, were devoured and slaughtered by Slaanesh after she gorged upon the depraved, filthy souls that formed the Eldar Empire of the time. I only survived due to being made into the experimental torture toy for Nurgle for more than 100,000 years in the warp, where every single day he would force his horrible diseases and curses upon myself," Isha said, hauntedly making Ellesmere flinch and lose her own aggression that filled her frame. Isha shook her head with a sad smile as she pulled back, and then as she looked at me, I saw the broken goddess within her as she stared at me like I was the fucking light in her eyes or something. The center of her universe. I couldn't explain it any better than that, honestly, and then her next words hit me right in the feels as she took my hand and her eyes looked directly into my soul. "I spent 100,000 years in the warp or more than 10,000 years in real space whispering the cures to all the plagues, sickness, and death in the universe while begging for the children I once birthed and protected to save me. But no, the Eldari only wished to birth a new god. A god of death who will certainly devour the souls of all the Eldar in the infinity circuits across the craft worlds to fuel its birth if it doesn't devour all the remaining living Eldar, to begin with." Isha ranted before her voice became soft. "So let the Eldari once again bring about their end. As a mother, I watched your race commit suicide by arrogance once before, unable to help, and was punished for being your mother. If the only being willing to save me from an eternity of torture wishes for me to be a loving wife, to indulge him with love, and bear him children born of his seed, and will treat me kindly and with dignity, you have no say in such, Ellesmere of the fallen Eldari," Isha said with finality, and Ellesmere. She couldn't meet her goddess's eyes as the words were all too true, and there was no arguing them. The new god of death, Iniad, like all gods, being born would explode into life violently, and that would cost the Eldar, and the Eldar as a race may not survive that cost.